There was one error I spot in the agenda. This marked as developer presentation. It's not a developer presentation. I've been a developer. I don't feel like a developer anymore. I'm able to develop something, but I don't want to. So I'm more like a consultant. So bear with me. I spent a long time in the Lotus Notes world, and I do have some handicaps. So I'm not good at versioning and unit tests and this kind of things, so I'm not the proper one. What I want to talk to you about today is a federated search, which is a feature nobody knows about, but I feel it's pretty cool. And the reason why it's pretty cool is because we all try to make the Salesforce the centerpiece of the world to our users. We push and pull all those data from external systems, and we really want the user to spend time just in Salesforce, not need to go anywhere else. And Salesforce is pretty good at it. It has a lot of different APIs, REST API, SOAP API, Streaming API. It can serve the API, it can consume the API. And if we don't want to use the APIs, we can use the Force Canvas or Lightning component, Visual Force pages. And we have a lot of different ways how to achieve what we want to achieve. But the crucial question is, do we want to do something like this? Do we really want to push all the data into Salesforce because the data space is pretty expensive? The last time I found the price, I was on the floor, lying for an hour, and then I tried to get up. The client didn't have this problem that much, but I was surprised. It also needs an enterprise license, and it needs the time and energy of all those developers who is coding something for a few weeks or months, and at the end they show it to the client or to the user, and they say, oh no, that's something different. So I can think about a few use cases where the search would be enough. Just imagine that you search right from the search bar. You don't need anything else. Right from the search bar, you search for a company name. And you either find the company name in your accounts, or you can find the company name in some external system. Like we have all those registries of companies, and we can get the information right from there. And this is something which can be enough for a lot of use cases, and it's super simple to set it up, and it's quite powerful. And it works in the professional edition as well, which is something which really surprised me. The answer is federated search. The federated search, I took this from the documentation, use the Salesforce search, extended for some federated search connector, which query the external API. The external API query its own database and send the response back. It's pretty simple. It's all built on open search format, which is something I didn't hear about before. It has this ugly web space, so if you find this on the internet, you are at the right place. And all it needs is something called open search description. This is a simple XML file. So you go into the setup, external data source, new external data source. You say some name, you set the type to open search, you put the link to open search description, if you have it. The National Library of Australia do have such file, so I put it here. You can even set up some authentication, so it doesn't have to be on the wide internet. You can use your username or certificate. And you save it, you click verify button. So it say, okay, it has one table, just sync, and it will create an external object, and then you can use it. Simple like that. in case you have the open search description file. If you don't have the open search description file, or if you don't have the search results in the right format, it's not a big deal. You are moving from the simple the powerful administrator of Salesforce to something more like a consultant. And you create it. So if you don't have something, you just Google it. So you will use Google for this as well. And Google is able to provide something called custom search. So first thing first, you get a key, which is some hash code you use to identify it's you, and it should use your search. Then you create a new search engine, and you can specify sites where you want to search for the data. And you can do some advanced options as well, so limit to certain types, limit to language, and so on and so on. And you click create, and then there's a button get the code. The code looks like this, but the only part we need from is the CX variable. So we have the key from the first screen, and we have the CX code from the second screen. And then we have a notepad. Maybe something else on this Macs, I don't know. But I do have a notepad because that's the best. So you write a simple XML file. You use Google API, custom search, you put the key you got, you put the CX variable, and you set that the type will be item or XML. And if you are lucky, you save it and you use it. And if you are lucky and you type it and you didn't copy it as I did when I prepared this presentation, it will work. What happened to me was that I took this code from some site and there was a hidden character at the beginning, which I didn't see in my great notepad, and it failed everything. So type it or open in binary editor so you can see there's some hidden character. The setup is the same. That's important. You have the XML file. You have to upload the XML file on some web server. So I'm using my own web server. I put the XML file on the web server so Salesforce is able to get it. And I search. I search in some external engine I don't own, but Google is able to index it. Something was wrong. This is another error I got during preparation. And this one was the simplest to solve. I just removed all those external objects, all those external data sources, and I started from scratch. And it went away. But this shows one bad thing about federated search. You are not able to debug the federated search. It either works or you get an error. And if you get an error, you have no idea why. And there's no way how to find it. But because we are at a dev session, I do have part for developers. So, who is a developer? Okay. I told you about myself, so I had to learn something new, and I got this picture from René Winkelmeyer article, where he uses Heroku to host his code, and he's querying IBM Watson. I'm querying something else, but at the end I'm using Heroku as well. Basically, this Salesforce sends request to your code. Your code sends request to the API, get the response, and send the response back. Not a dev, but I was scared about Heroku at first. So I am using DigitalOcean for all my other stuff, so I use DigitalOcean. And I set up everything, and I was happy. At the end, I found out that this service has to run on HTTPS. DigitalOcean by default doesn't run on HTTPS, so I'm not good at Linux as well, so I had to set up my web server to support HTTPS, and I failed after an hour. I failed. So I said, okay, Heroku, let it be Heroku, because Heroku is on HTTPS by default. So I signed up on Heroku. It provides you a free account, so you can use it. And Heroku has some CLI, and it's somehow connected with Git, and so it was fucking complex. But then I found out, it's not important for you, but it was important for me, that you can connect Heroku to Dropbox. So I uploaded all my files to Dropbox, and I deployed to Heroku from Dropbox. It took me 10 minutes to set up Heroku, connect it to Dropbox, and deploy everything. So if you didn't use Heroku before, give it a try. It's really nice. It's for free at the base level, and it can solve you some headaches. So again, we start with putting together the OpenSearch description file, which is a bit more complex in this case. Here is my Heroku server, and here, this section is new. I can set up new record types, and I can define my fields for the external object I will create. And you can specify, I would say, any number of fields, and they have the standard types like string, numbers, currency, date. That's probably all you need. Upload it to Heroku or any other server. The second thing I prepared is a mustache template, which renders the answer from the API to the XML file in the OpenSearch definition format. This was my first time with Mustache, but it's super simple to use. I was surprised. Basically what it does, it takes the JSON you get as a response from the API. You have the template, and it will render the XML file. And all you have to use is the double brackets, which just defines the variable. You use the name, so I do have the results. And if you use the hashtags, it just tells you you will cycle over some array. So basically it says, okay, under results I have an array of companies, which I do. And under companies, I have a company.name, and I'm interested in this. So I got a company name in the title tag, and I got the company number right here. So that was like super easy to use. And you can spot triple brackets, which means it will provide the value not HTML encoded, but right as it got from the JSON. And the last step was to write the code which will query the API. René, in his example, used Node.js. Okay, whatever. I can copy it, maybe, and tweak it. So I copied it. It's just something like 20 lines, maybe. And basically, this part is the whole part which gets it. So I process the GET request I got from Salesforce. I get the request, and I have a response. From the request, I take the query part, and I make another request to the API I want to query, which is right here. This is the API. At the end, I put the query part I got from Salesforce, and I queried the request. And then in a response, I read the Mustache template I have, and I use it to render the data I got as a response from the API. This was the hardest part. You wouldn't believe it. I copied the code, I changed it from the René's example. I was able to deploy it to the server. It was all easy. I was done in an hour maybe. This simple part took me 3 hours. I wasn't able to make the mustache template working. I was completely lost. It just didn't work, so I copied and pasted and tried everything. And at the end, I found out that I have to use the JSON.pass to pass the string body to the JSON format, which is the mustache template is able to render. So if you are a JavaScript expert, you probably know it, but it was another surprise for me. And then the render template you send as a response to the request from Salesforce. Again, you define the external data source. And when you validate the data source, you get the external object, which has the fields we defined. And when you search, you have all those values. You are able to customize the search view. You are able to customize the form. And you are able to do anything. And because you are able to do anything, you can not just even customize the form and use it, put some new buttons, maybe run some flows or so on. You are able to use the external objects in social. You probably heard about it, Salesforce object search language. So it's pretty simple. You just find the name in this external object I have, and I'm interested in these fields from the external object. This is some sample Apex controller. This is some simple Lightning component I've been able to put together, which surprised me. So I do have the controller. I do have the list of objects that I will get from the controller. And here I iterate over them and publish the company name, title, jurisdiction, and current status. And this is the Lightning controller, which just we just get the Apex controller, set the parameter to the existing record ID, and call the Apex controller and get the response and set the variable in my component. And it looks like this. This is the Lightning component I put together in 10 minutes maybe. And when I put it together, I was like, okay, I can really imagine some super examples. I can query my ERP to get a list of invoices, because I don't really need the invoices in my Salesforce, because nobody cares. All I want to do is my salesman to be able to view the invoices and their status, but I don't need them for reporting purposes or something like this. And you can have more examples like this. And what I like about it is that I don't have to write any extra code. All I use is the external object, which can be something which simplifies your flow, it simplifies your code, and it simplifies your life as well. There is another presentation after me, but then there is a lunch, and you can skip the lunch and go to Trailhead. And it's about the time we have dedicated for lunch. So during the lunch, you can do the Trailhead, and after the lunch, well, not lunch, you will be expert in federated search as well. Guys, give it a try. I think you will find a few use cases. Any questions? Because we have time. It's different. It's different code, but it provides about the same functionality.
Can you use them in reports?
You can't use it in reports. So if you want to use reports, you need to get the data into Salesforce. And it takes some time. I've been surprised, for example, when I first opened this record, because it queries external system and it has some delay, I was like, it doesn't work. And then like 5 seconds later, I got the response. But for the second time, it was somehow cached, so it was straight away.
Still missing a link, I think. You said you can query your ERP.
You can query your ERP or anything.
On-premise applications.
Well, as long as it's exposed.
And you said that Google will index your data? Or
You either expose it to Google, or you write your own code somewhere and you expose that code. You are fine.
So is it the browser that's querying the data, or is it going via Salesforce?
Going through Salesforce. So yeah, you can, there should be, and then I put it in the trailhead probably, there should be some authentication around it. Or you can use the Salesforce IP address to limit who is able to get to this service. But yeah, as long as you are able to get to the ERP somehow, you are fine.
if Google is not the search engine or the one indexing, you write your own stuff.
You write your own.
So you basically write
What's great about Google is that it indexes it, but it returns just the title and the link. It doesn't provide all those extra fields. So you will, from Google, you get just the title and the link. If you want something more, you need to write your own and provide your own definition of the XML file. Okay. Thanks for coming, and good luck.